So I'd put in overheads faster than most people would.
Ahead of requirements, and also in your case then ahead of affordability, was the right thing to do. Otherwise, you might get so frustrated by this, you might not even do it anymore. 6 acquisitions in your new group and taken it from 0 to 2.5 million in annual revenue, with another acquisition lined up, ready to go, and I'm sure many more to come to follow. I want to discover from you what you've learnt from that, and also, I understand, doing 150 discovery calls with owners. So, big question to start off with. What have you learnt?
I think anybody going out there doing discovery calls is going to be a little bit nervous about what people are like. So the majority are actually entirely reasonable, nice to talk to. Yes, a little bit edgy, a bit nervous. One of the big ones I've learned is if you start off on a hostile foot or semi-hostile foot from the conversation from the other side, you might as well walk away straight away. And if they're unreasonable at the beginning, it'll come back. If you think you've dealt with it, in my experience is it comes back. So a classic was one of the people talked about red lines, and one of them was a defined value for a property, but not based on a formal valuation. And we explained why that wasn't reasonable. We thought we'd got over it. And then a week before completion, they reintroduced it as a red line.
Right.
So we
got it.
So we walked away at that point. They then tried to reopen negotiations. We said, no, sorry, that's it.
Interesting. So I suppose the benefit of having deal flow is that you can walk away at any time.
Yeah, and the amusing thing is they don't believe you. What a surprise, because anybody doing what we're doing is dodgy, aren't they? But it feels good saying that, which I have done recently, and it's genuine. We'll have another one completing in either the same slot or a month after they would have completed, and the work was going on behind. So that, I think, the deal flow and the negotiation flow before that make a huge difference to how you feel in the process. You're not reliant on just one thing happening.
And just give everyone a flavour of your background, your business background, because you're kind of doing this as something to occupy you and give you a challenge, aren't you?
This is a retirement project.
Yes.
So I'm working part-time, and the background is I've built 2 other businesses, one of which did pretty well, sold it in February 2020 in the technology sector. And the options were voluntary work, non-executive director somewhere, or do something that was proactive. And I talked to people who'd done non-executive director, and I had some views about it before the conversation, and just thought that's just not for me,
right.
That sort of thing. Well, certainly not at the moment anyway. And I've really enjoyed doing what I'm doing.
What, the acquisitions?
Yeah.
So what is it about it that you enjoy most?
Building something. So building something, and this time slightly different, because last time I was mainly operational, so I was actually managing the business. And obviously in the early part I got involved in some of that. The first couple of deals, it's almost inevitable. But the partly what I'm doing now is mentoring people through who are new to being directors of bigger businesses, sort of thing. So part of that's quite I'm enjoying
interesting.
that as well.
Interesting. So let's come to some of the lessons that you've learned that you can share with others, because I know because you've been at Mastermind and Inner Circle, you are analytical about the deals and what works and what doesn't work, and I think that's one of your strengths is that you do analyze what makes something work. Yeah. So what makes a deal work? Very general starter question. And what makes a deal not work?
Deal works is, and I think one of the things you taught was motivated seller. But motivated sellers also motivated, if you get the deal structure on deferred consideration, is also motivated that it continues to work. And they understand that. Ones that don't work, and I've had one, it was they'd had a really bad experience. So we bought it after their really bad experience, probably shouldn't have done. And they'd had a big contract walk away, no fault of theirs. It was based on tiny amounts of money that they lost the contract, nothing to do with poor service. But they'd had to restructure their business, move premises, get rid of loads of people. So in that business, everybody was demotivated. So within 2 months, the reception team had gone.
And that's very important in your sector. Have we mentioned your sector? I don't think
we have. No. So I'm buying osteopathic and physiotherapy practices. Over 250,000 turnover.
So that practice management receptions team, the front, what do you call them, front of house staff, they are actually very important to the success of the business.
Absolutely,
aren't they?
And they quite often have part of the therapy is the conversation with the receptionist, sort of thing. So but also the owner decided on the consultancy agreement to take 2 months off, and she was at that point the last remaining fee earner.
Oh, really?
So we did deal with that fairly robustly, but it just but what's behind all that was she was demotivated too.
Yeah.
So that if the underlying strength of the business, if it's had a big slump, I would say don't deal with it for a good 18 months until it's recovered.
Interesting. So out of these 6 acquisitions, how do you grade them? What makes the best one the best? What makes the worst one the worst?
Okay, the best one wasn't what we thought would be the best one, and the best one was the one where the workforce stayed the most stable.
Oh, interesting.
Because it meant the revenues carried on quite nicely.
You know what, I so agree with that, because I had quite a few where it was unstable from the very first day, quite often initiated by the exiting owner, who went and said something stupid to the staff. Good luck, guys, you're going to need it. So one sentence, one phrase, and then before you know it, they're off, getting jobs elsewhere, and then it all starts to collapse.
Yeah, and the nightmare one I described was on an earn-out, so we thought, as in they could increase what they were getting. So we thought that would motivate them. It really didn't, because of what they'd been through.
Right. For other reasons, for health and retirement typically are the main ones, aren't they? But if it's, I'm very motivated to leave because this business is about to collapse any minute, that's the wrong motivation.
If you want to find out how to buy a business successfully, get your free business buying toolkit. The link is in the video description below.
It's really important. We've left money on the table by not managing through fee increases quickly enough.
So this is the pricing structure of the services offered by the business. Yeah,
and in fact, I've just, I might not have turned this one down, but I've just turned quite a very nice business down, partly because they understand that they're worth quite a bit more than we want to pay, but also they've already done all the things you would do to improve it. So there aren't any quick wins there. But typically in my sector, the business owners are reluctant to charge a fair rate for what they actually do and their qualifications. We probably left 100 grand on the table by not putting fees up quickly enough, which later, when you start to realise what you've done and catching up, is a lot harder than doing it as quickly as you can. So we're going through that process now. We did instruct fee increases. In some cases they did it, in some cases they didn't. And I take responsibility for that. We should have managed it through. It's a lesson learnt.
Well, I mean, in all fairness, you would hope that when the boss says need to put the prices up, that they go away and put the prices. And I think sometimes it's because people feel as though, well, I wouldn't pay that. They put them. They think that they are the customer, and they're not. And they so wouldn't be able to afford that. We can't put the prices up for them. They're a good customer. They don't see it holistically as a business with overheads and staff to pay.
No, and to be fair, because I've modified most people are doing what you're doing, it's buy, build and sell. Because I'm doing this partly for interest, and don't get me wrong, a business has to make money, otherwise it's not healthy. So of course it needs to make money and potentially will be saleable. We've decided if we do, it'll be to management team or even a partial sale to management team. I'm quite relaxed about a partial exit. So the business that I've described, in a year's time, we might well have taken it because they've got really good management team. But right now, today, the management team I've got aren't up to taking over at that level of business today. In a year's time, they would be.
But tell us about your management team, how you found them, who they are, the component parts of that management team, and what they do day to day.
Okay, well, I'll tell you about the first one, and this was way ahead. So what I've done, the vision here is to build a professional main board, and I was expecting people to come out of the practices. So the first practice we bought, it was an unusual, surprising one. One of the associates, so I made a point of talking to all of the senior associates, fee earners, personally at the beginning. And now other people are doing that part. But at the beginning, I made a point of talking to those people and saying this is what the vision is and making it clear that I wanted them to be part of that.
So you actually had individual conversations with every member of staff?
No, all the senior fee earners. So anybody that had been there that was more than 5 years qualified. Sort of thing.
And that's the distinction in your sector, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
And or practice managers for obvious reasons. So that they're key to what we're doing as well. And one of those associates mentioned her partner to me, who was at the time working in Ireland, and she was working in Hertfordshire. And she mentioned how eminent he was. He lectures across Europe in his field. And also was part of a practice, but they got a decision to make about whether they're going to be in Ireland or in England. And I said, I'd love to meet him. It sounds amazing. 2 weeks later, she'd organised it. He's now our osteopathic director.
Oh, fantastic.
And because it was one of those, it was too early for us, but he was very happy to compromise because of the fact he wanted to relocate anyway. Mm-hmm. So actually, and he's really enjoying it a lot. The osteopathic world, they're mainly used to being self-employed, and we brought him in on a salary.
Let me ask you then, John. So are you therefore looking at this in specific geographies?
No, I went national, and then followed what happened. I've got a story for you on the geography, and I know you have too. But in the telecoms business and ISP business that we set up, we actually set up a sub-dealer network. And we were based in Norfolk, and we thought, well, we'll go as far as the Midlands. Well, the word went out, and the first inquiry was from Glasgow, and the second inquiry, but it was an introduction from a major supplier. And I thought, if we turn that down, they're never going to put another one our way, are they? The second one was in Yeovil.
Oh,
so we ended up filling the gap. It did end up
like a 10-hour travel time between the two.
And I'm not saying don't be geographically specific. It's much easier if you are.
Yes.
What I've done is I've made a point of I won't buy a business if I don't think they can stand on their own 2 feet very quickly.
Yeah, so therefore the geography becomes less important, doesn't
exactly,
it?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I completely agree. If you've got weak management and it can't stand on its own 2 feet, all it will do is drag down the rest of the group.
Yeah.
All it will do is suck time and effort and energy and probably money to fix it.
All of those.
Yeah, better not to buy it in the first place.
Yeah.
Buying a business is a roller coaster, which is why you need a lawyer who knows what he is doing. So why not use mine? His name is John Andrews, and you can find his contact details below this video.
So that's really interesting. So who else is in your management team? Do you have an FD?
Yeah.
CFO?
I've got a qualified accountant who's an FD. He actually FD'd for me in the previous business that I sold.
Very good. So you've got that trust already.
Yeah, he's
wonderful.
Very, very strong on the operational finance and really good with suppliers if they need sorting out. And then I've got a guy who I've known since university who's been FD of a really big £100 million a year company. He's doing 2 days a month as a CFO doing strategic finance.
Okay, wonderful. So it sounds like you've got that sorted. And I would assume that apart from the standard management accounts, are you getting some sort of cash flow forecasting?
Yeah. So the cash flow is reasonably close 12 months out. And then, as you know, it's a story after that, really, isn't it?
Yeah, sure.
So we ask for management accounts within 3 weeks of month end, but we also ask for sales within a week of month end. We did consider going to weekly, but to be honest with you, holidays and stuff like that make such a big difference to the revenue, as in therapists' holidays.
Okay.
We think it's irrelevant to look at weekly.
Do your locations take cash, or is it card only?
Some of them did, and we've stopped that.
Yeah.
2 reasons. If you looked at the amount of cash they were taking, it was tiny.
Sure.
So the time involved in banking it is actually probably costs you more than the money you've collected.
Absolutely. Are you in that position where you can actually look at an iPad and see the fees as they appear?
Oh, we could do, yeah. But because of the underlying information data you'd need to do with the fee, because obviously that's footfall. If I haven't got a therapist in because they're on holiday, or 2 therapists out on holiday, that immediacy doesn't really help.
Okay.
It's the trend and the pattern. So over a rolling quarter, then the number of appointments that have been made, that's important data, and that tells us whether the trend is changing or not.
Yeah, very, very good. So what about HR? Because you must be your staff count must be
okay. So it's
heading upwards quite rapidly.
Yeah, it's reactive at the moment. So I've got a broad approach, which is keep employment contracts fairly simple, statutory minimum, and then if the therapy side want roles described in more detail, that's not a problem for me. They can do that, and I think they do that. So we probably will need to develop an HR function. These are all fairly small family-sized businesses, really. And I think if we're too structured on HR, it starts to lose that feel if it's too corporate.
Yeah, it's knowing, isn't it, at what point you have an HR function, and it's as much as to listen to people and solve problems before they become official problems. And I've done that very badly.
Right.
Yeah, really, really badly.
Yeah.
And we never had a good HR person. They always seemed to be a bit flaky. But that's our fault for hiring the wrong people. But we never seemed to have someone who was actually on the ball and understood that we don't want grievances and disciplinaries. We don't want any of that. What we want are happy people.
Yeah.
Because happy people keep the cash register ringing, don't they?
Absolutely. So we probably do some low-level training because the 2 key people in the practice are the clinical lead and the practice manager. And some of the clinical leads are profit-focused as well. Some of them are completely patient-focused. And I'm fine with either, as long as you've got at least one of them that's got some eye on profit. And typically those 2 work very closely together on the people side as well. So I think perhaps some coaching in that area might do enough for us. But it depends how big it goes, to be honest with you.
Good. So what else, John, could you share that you've discovered along the way that in some ways maybe you wished you'd known earlier on, but you discovered from experience?
I think the speed, it's not just the speed of doing the deal, it's the speed of engaging with the practice is really important. So, and we've actually changed the timing of when we'll do deals now because of that. I think I would say on that point, actually, so I've slowed down a little bit now, but that you do need to work pretty hard quickly to get to a critical mass, in my view.
I agree.
And it's different depending on the size of businesses that you're buying. So if you're buying a multi-million-pound business, you probably can spend a little bit of time before you do the next one.
Yeah.
But if you're buying the smaller ones,
Absolutely.
as I am, then you need that critical mass. Otherwise, you can't put the management in.
Exactly. You've got to get to a point where it needs that management team and it can afford that management team. Otherwise, what happens is you get dragged into it.
Yeah. Well, I don't mind sharing with you. We're just about to move into profit, so I put in overheads faster than most people would.
Yes.
And that's partly to do with the fact that if necessary, I'm prepared to part fund it. So it's broadly on the principles that you've advocated, but if I'm taking a view which is more to do with my comfort, then I'm prepared to pay for that.
No, I think you've done the right thing, because getting management in place ahead of requirements, and also in your case then ahead of affordability, was the right thing to do. Otherwise, you might get so frustrated by this, you might not even do it anymore. But now you've got the structure in place, the infrastructure, you've got the foundation in place. So now every new acquisition should be reasonably straightforward and hassle-free for you.